Before two people sleep together, something powerful is happening, not just physically, but emotionally. Intimacy creates attachment, and attachment without clarity can quietly lead to confusion, hope, or heartbreak. That's why the smartest move isn't rushing the moment, but understanding the meaning behind it. The most important questions to ask him before sleeping together aren't awkward, they're essential. Ask where he sees this connection going, not to pressure him, but to understand him. Ask what commitment means to him, because everyone defines it differently. Ask about his emotional availability, not his words, but his actions. Ask what he's truly looking for right now, companionship, growth, or convenience. And finally, ask yourself whether his answers align with your needs, because intimacy should deepen something real, not create hope where clarity was missing. Emotional safety comes before physical intimacy, because intimacy amplifies whatever foundation already exists. When two people sleep together, it doesn't simply stay in the body, it moves into expectations, attachment, and meaning. This is especially true when one or both people are emotionally open. The mistake many people make is assuming they can handle it later, that they can separate feelings from actions. In reality, the human brain is wired to bond through closeness. So if emotional safety isn't present first, physical intimacy can create a false sense of connection that hasn't yet been earned. Emotional safety means you feel calm, not anxious, when you think about where you stand. You don't feel the need to decode his texts, question his interest, or guess what you mean to him. You feel respected enough to ask honest questions and secure enough to hear honest answers. It's knowing that your vulnerability won't be used against you or ignored once the moment has passed. Without this safety, intimacy can become a gamble where one person is risking far more than the other. This keynote is not about delaying intimacy for rules or morality. It's about understanding cause and effect. When physical closeness happens before emotional clarity, the emotional cost often shows up later. People confuse chemistry with compatibility and passion with potential. Emotional safety acts as a filter. It helps you distinguish whether desire is mutual, intentions are aligned, and respect is consistent. It prevents you from emotionally investing in someone who hasn't emotionally shown up. Another important part of emotional safety is self-trust. When you feel safe, you are not betraying your own needs just to maintain attraction. You're not agreeing to situations that make you uncomfortable because you're afraid of losing him. You're able to say, "This matters to me," without fear that expressing your needs will push him away. If honesty pushes someone away, that person was never safe to begin with. Emotional safety also reveals maturity. A man who is emotionally safe doesn't avoid conversations about intentions, boundaries, or expectations. He doesn't mock them, rush past them, or label them as too much. Instead, he understands that intimacy without clarity creates complications. His willingness to engage in these conversations shows emotional responsibility, not perfection, but awareness. Sleeping together should feel like a continuation of connection, not an attempt to create it. When emotional safety exists, intimacy deepens trust rather than replacing it. You don't wake up wondering if things will change, if he'll pull back, or if you'll suddenly feel more attached than he does. Emotional safety ensures that closeness doesn't create imbalance. Emotional safety protects both people. It creates a space where intimacy is mutual, intentional, and grounded. It allows desire to exist without anxiety and connection without confusion. When emotional safety comes first, physical intimacy becomes something shared, not something hoped will fix uncertainty. And that difference changes everything. Intentions over chemistry is one of the most important principles to understand before engaging in physical intimacy, because attraction alone can be deceptively powerful. Chemistry feels electric, magnetic, and all-consuming, and it can trick people into assuming that the connection is deeper than it really is. That initial spark often feels like a shortcut to closeness, but in reality, chemistry without intention is just energy, intense, fleeting, and sometimes misleading. If you rely solely on how someone makes you feel in the moment, you may ignore signs that their goals, desires, or priorities are fundamentally misaligned with yours. Intentions act as the compass that gives their energy direction, meaning, and safety. Without knowing them, even the strongest chemistry can lead to confusion, disappointment, or attachment to someone who isn't emotionally invested. Understanding intentions requires careful observation, clear communication, and often the courage to ask questions that feel uncomfortable. It's not about interrogation, it's about mutual clarity. Before sleeping together, ask yourself, does he see this as casual fun, a step towards something meaningful, or simply a temporary escape? These distinctions matter because your emotional experience will mirror the reality of his intentions. If his intention is casual while yours is deeper, the chemistry that felt like connection may turn into frustration, hurt, or disillusionment. Conversely, if his intention aligns with yours, that same chemistry becomes a foundation, a catalyst that accelerates intimacy in a safe, healthy way. Chemistry is the fuel, but intention is the engine guiding where that fuel will take you. Intentions also reveal consistency and reliability. People can be charming, passionate, and highly physically engaging, but if their intentions are inconsistent or unclear, the emotional cost falls on you. It's tempting to assume that desire equals commitment, or that passion will naturally lead to deeper connection, but history shows otherwise. Intention is the lens through which actions gain clarity. A man who wants a real connection will demonstrate it beyond fleeting moments of attraction. He will communicate openly, make time for you, respect your boundaries, and align his words with actions. In contrast, someone without clear intentions may say all the right things in the heat of the moment, but disappear or act unpredictably afterward. Understanding his intentions prevents you from misreading his behavior and avoids confusing lust for emotional investment. Recognizing intentions also empowers self-respect. When you are aware of what someone wants, you can make choices that protect your emotional well-being. You are able to say yes when it aligns with your desires and no when it doesn't, without guilt or second-guessing. Clarity about intentions prevents you from compromising your own standards or settling for less than what you truly want. It allows intimacy to be an act of mutual respect rather than a risk of self-betrayal. Intentions also help manage expectations. When you know what someone is seeking, you can anticipate their behavior and respond in ways that keep the dynamic healthy. For instance, if he is interested in casual intimacy, but not long-term commitment, you can decide whether that works for you or not. Without this knowledge, you may read meaning into his actions that aren't there, investing emotions in a scenario that was never meant to be reciprocal. Understanding intentions creates a framework for emotional safety, even before physical intimacy occurs. Understanding intentions nurtures emotional intelligence. It trains you to see beyond immediate gratification, to recognize patterns, and to assess compatibility realistically. Chemistry might ignite desire, but intention ensures that desire is not misdirected or wasted on someone whose priorities don't match your own. It encourages conscious decision-making instead of reactive behavior, giving you agency over your heart and your choices. By prioritizing intentions over chemistry, intimacy becomes a thoughtful, empowering experience rather than a gamble driven purely by desire. Chemistry draws attention, but intentions define the trajectory of connection. Without clear intentions, the most intense chemistry can feel like a mirage, exciting in the moment but leaving emptiness in its wake. With clear intentions, that chemistry transforms into something sustainable, meaningful, and mutually fulfilling, creating the foundation for intimacy that strengthens rather than confuses, and connection that nurtures rather than diminishes. Understanding this principle is essential for anyone seeking to protect their heart while embracing desire. Consistency predicts commitment because actions reveal the truth behind words. It's easy for someone to say all the right things, shower you with attention, and create moments that feel significant, but unless their behavior is steady over time, words alone are unreliable. Human brains are wired to notice patterns. Repeated actions form a picture of genuine intent. If a man consistently shows up, communicates openly, and honors his commitments, those patterns indicate that he is likely capable of long-term emotional investment. On the other hand, inconsistency, hot and cold behavior, disappearing for days, or making promises without follow-through, signals that the connection may be based more on convenience or temporary desire than real commitment. Before sleeping with someone, observing these patterns is critical because intimacy can amplify attachment. You want to ensure that the emotional foundation is steady enough to handle that level of closeness. Consistency goes beyond mere reliability. It reflects emotional maturity and integrity. A man who is consistent demonstrates that he values your time, your feelings, and the connection itself. Consistency is not perfection, but it is predictable in ways that allow trust to grow. For instance, does he communicate when he says he will? Does he show up when he plans to? Does he honor boundaries even when it's inconvenient? These repeated behaviors reveal whether he prioritizes connection over momentary impulse. If his actions fluctuate wildly based on mood, external circumstances, or fleeting desire, it's a warning sign that emotional commitment may be lacking. Intimacy should not be an experiment. It should feel like a safe continuation of the trust that has already been built, and consistent behavior is what signals that safety. Observing consistency also helps prevent self-deception. In the heat of attraction, it's tempting to rationalize inconsistency, excuse missed calls, or reinterpret broken promises. Chemistry and desire can cloud judgment, making us focus on the moments when someone is attentive and loving while ignoring the patterns that indicate otherwise. By focusing on consistent behavior, you protect yourself from building hope on unreliable foundations. Intimacy becomes a reflection of reality, not wishful thinking. Knowing that he consistently shows up for you, communicates honestly, and respects your boundaries means that sleeping together is less likely to create regret, confusion, or emotional imbalance. Consistency also fosters a sense of security in the relationship. Emotional attachment is natural in intimate situations, and the risk of imbalance rises when one person is invested and the other is unpredictable. When actions are steady, you can relax into intimacy rather than constantly questioning motives or fearing abandonment. You feel seen, valued, and understood, which allows connection to deepen in a healthy, balanced way. On the flip side, inconsistency triggers anxiety, self-doubt, and overthinking, which are dangerous to emotional well-being, especially when physical closeness amplifies attachment. Another reason consistency predicts commitment is that it demonstrates alignment between words, intentions, and behaviors. Many people can articulate interest or affection, but true commitment is measured in repeated, tangible actions. Showing up for someone in small, routine ways is as important, if not more, than grand gestures or intense passion. A man who is committed will consistently match his words with actions, proving that the connection matters to him. This alignment builds trust and ensures that intimacy is shared with someone who is emotionally capable of sustaining it. Consistency also allows for mutual growth. When both partners can predict each other's behavior with reasonable certainty, they can navigate vulnerability, emotional discussions, and intimacy without fear of sudden withdrawal. Physical closeness becomes an extension of the emotional connection rather than a blind leap into uncertainty. When a man is consistent, it signals that he's capable of being a partner through ups and downs, not just in moments of desire or convenience. Consistency predicts commitment because repeated, reliable actions provide clarity, safety, and trust. It protects your heart, your expectations, and the meaning of intimacy. Without it, even the strongest chemistry or deepest attraction can create confusion, attachment to someone who isn't truly invested, and emotional turbulence. But when consistency is present, it transforms physical closeness into a shared experience rooted in reality, mutual respect, and genuine emotional engagement, creating a foundation where connection, desire, and trust can thrive together. Values create stability because they serve as the internal compass that guides decisions, behaviors, and priorities in a relationship. Before sleeping with someone, understanding whether your core values align is crucial because intimacy naturally accelerates attachment. Physical closeness magnifies emotional resonance. It makes differences in priorities, ethics, and long-term goals impossible to ignore. If your values are misaligned, even the strongest attraction can become a source of tension, disappointment, or heartache. Shared values, on the other hand, provide a sense of predictability and safety, allowing both people to navigate intimacy and connection with confidence. Values are not superficial. They include how someone treats others, their emotional honesty, their boundaries, their ambitions, and the way they handle conflict. Recognizing alignment in these areas creates stability because you're entering intimacy with a person whose principles and outlook are compatible with your own. Values are also about long-term vision. Someone's approach to family, career, personal growth, and emotional responsibility reveals who they are beneath the surface. Sleeping together with someone whose values differ significantly from yours may feel thrilling in the moment, but it can lead to dissonance over time. For example, if one person values open communication while the other avoids difficult conversations, physical closeness may mask the underlying incompatibility, only for it to resurface later in frustration or misunderstanding. Understanding values early ensures that intimacy isn't being layered on top of misalignment, which is often when regret or resentment develops. Stability is created not by attraction alone, but by knowing that the other person's principles support and complement yours. Values also influence how someone responds to boundaries, consent, and respect. A man whose values align with yours will naturally honor your limits, listen when you express needs, and prioritize your emotional well-being. In contrast, someone whose values differ may disregard boundaries when it is inconvenient or when desire is high, leaving you vulnerable to manipulation or emotional harm. Recognizing these patterns before physical intimacy allows you to make informed choices rather than reactive ones. It also empowers you to observe whether his actions consistently reflect his stated values, because values are revealed in behavior, not just words. Another important aspect is emotional consistency. When values align, you can anticipate reactions, navigate disagreement, and trust that the connection is not dependent solely on mood or desire. Stability doesn't mean predictability in a boring sense. It means knowing that the foundation of the relationship is shared, which creates security to be vulnerable without fear. Values act as a stabilizing force, reducing the emotional turbulence that can arise when intimacy accelerates attachment faster than understanding. Values also affect compatibility in deeper, more practical ways. For instance, if someone values honesty, transparency, and long-term planning, their approach to intimacy is likely to be thoughtful and intentional. Conversely, if someone prioritizes spontaneity, personal freedom, or short-term gratification over relational responsibility, physical intimacy may carry emotional risks that you might not be prepared for. Understanding this allows you to navigate the decision to sleep together with awareness rather than wishful thinking. It's not about judging, but about assessing whether your lives can move forward harmoniously, even in the smallest ways, without emotional conflict arising from fundamental differences. Shared values also support the development of trust. Trust is not built solely on promises, it is built on repeated confirmation that someone's actions, choices, and priorities reflect principles you hold dear. When a man demonstrates that his values align with yours through consistent behavior, it reduces the uncertainty that often accompanies physical intimacy. You can engage in closeness without anxiety because you are confident that he approaches connection in ways that are compatible with your beliefs, boundaries, and emotional needs. This predictability fosters freedom, comfort, and true emotional presence. Values create a framework for mutual growth. When two people share fundamental principles, intimacy becomes a space where both can be vulnerable, ambitious, and authentic without fear of misalignment. Physical connection enhances emotional connection rather than obscuring differences. When values are aligned, intimacy strengthens the bond rather than complicates it. Stability comes not from controlling desire or suppressing attraction, but from entering connection with clarity, compatibility, and confidence that the relationship is supported by shared principles. Understanding and honoring values before sleeping together ensures that intimacy deepens trust, fosters security, and builds a connection that is meaningful, resilient, and grounded in reality rather than temporary passion. Clarity prevents regret because it ensures that every choice you make, especially the choice to engage in physical intimacy, is informed, conscious, and aligned with your emotional needs. Often, people move into intimacy with assumptions, hope, or the desire to see where things might go, without fully understanding the reality of the connection. This is risky because intimacy is not just a physical act, it is an emotional contract. When you sleep with someone without clarity, you are opening yourself up to attachment, vulnerability, and expectations that may not be reciprocated. Regret often arises not from the act itself, but from the mismatch between your emotional investment and the other person's intentions or capacity. By prioritizing clarity before intimacy, you create a framework that protects your heart, reinforces self-respect, and allows desire to coexist with discernment. Clarity requires asking difficult questions, the ones people often avoid because they fear disrupting the moment. Questions about intentions, emotional availability, boundaries, and long-term goals are not interrogation, they are acts of self-preservation. They allow you to understand whether the connection is mutual and meaningful, or if it is built primarily on desire and convenience. Without this understanding, physical closeness can create illusions of connection. You may feel bonded in ways that are disproportionate to reality, which can lead to emotional confusion, disappointment, or heartbreak. Clarity prevents this by ensuring that your perception matches the truth of the relationship. Clarity also helps you navigate your own expectations. Humans have a tendency to interpret intimacy as a signal of emotional investment. Even if the other person is not seeking commitment, your brain may attach significance to the closeness shared, creating hope or assumptions about the future. By clarifying intentions and boundaries beforehand, you are proactively managing your emotional landscape. You are telling yourself and him exactly what this moment represents and what it does not. This reduces the likelihood of projecting unmet desires onto the connection and minimizes the risk of emotional overextension. Another important aspect of clarity is understanding the pace of the relationship. Some people are ready to move quickly into physical intimacy, while others need more time to build emotional trust. Clarity allows you to assess whether the pace aligns with your needs and comfort level. It also enables you to set boundaries that are respected, preventing situations where physical closeness accelerates emotional attachment faster than you are prepared for. Without this clarity, intimacy can feel like a sudden, uncontrollable wave that leaves you struggling to regain balance, questioning your decisions, or wondering if you have compromised your standards. Clarity also fosters communication skills that are essential for long-term connection. When you ask questions openly and listen carefully to answers, you are modeling honesty, vulnerability, and self-awareness. These behaviors encourage reciprocity, allowing the other person to communicate their needs and intentions transparently. This kind of dialogue builds trust and ensures that intimacy is not a blind leap into uncertainty, but a shared experience grounded in mutual understanding. Clear communication prevents misunderstandings and helps both parties navigate the complexities of desire, attraction, and emotional investment in a thoughtful way. Clarity prevents regret by giving you agency. When you know what you are stepping into, you are choosing consciously rather than being carried along by impulse, chemistry, or hope. Physical intimacy should be an act of mutual willingness, not a reaction to pressure or uncertainty. By establishing clarity, you reclaim control over your decisions, ensuring that they reflect your values, boundaries, and desires. This sense of agency reduces guilt, second-guessing, and post-intimacy anxiety, allowing the experience to be meaningful rather than confusing. Clarity also protects against mismatched intentions. Sometimes, people engage in intimacy with the hope that it will change the other person's feelings, prompt commitment, or strengthen attachment. While desire can be persuasive, it cannot substitute for alignment in intentions, values, or emotional readiness. By clarifying expectations and understanding the reality of the connection, you prevent yourself from investing hope in a situation that cannot deliver on it. Clarity acts as a safeguard, ensuring that your emotional energy is not expended disproportionately or wasted on someone who cannot meet your needs. Clarity strengthens self-respect and emotional resilience. When you make decisions with a full understanding of the situation, you are honoring your own boundaries and demonstrating to yourself that your needs matter. This self-respect sets a standard for how you are treated in the relationship. It also reduces the risk of emotional vulnerability being exploited or misinterpreted, because you have already defined the rules of engagement for yourself and the other person. Clear boundaries and informed consent protect not only your feelings, but also your sense of personal integrity. Clarity allows intimacy to be fully present and enriching. When both people understand the intentions, expectations, and boundaries, physical closeness becomes a shared experience rather than a source of confusion or anxiety. You can enjoy connection without fear, attachment without ambiguity, and desire without compromise. This transforms intimacy from a potentially risky leap into an empowering, conscious choice that nurtures both emotional and physical well-being. Clarity prevents regret because it ensures that every choice is informed, every boundary is respected, and every expectation is aligned, creating a space where intimacy strengthens the connection rather than complicates it. Here's a strong, polished conclusion for your entire speech in the style you requested. At the end of the day, choosing to be intimate with someone is not just a physical decision, it's an emotional one, and it deserves the same clarity, respect, and intentionality you would give to any other meaningful choice in your life. When you prioritize emotional safety, understand his intentions, observe consistency, evaluate values, and demand clarity, you are not complicating desire, you are protecting your heart, your boundaries, and your future. Intimacy should deepen connection, not create confusion. It should feel empowering, not reckless. By asking the right questions, noticing the patterns, and listening to your instincts, you ensure that every step forward is conscious and intentional. That's how desire becomes meaningful, attraction becomes safe, and closeness becomes a choice you can embrace fully, without regret, without compromise, and without sacrificing who you are.